On a crisp morning at St. James Palace in London, the courtyard buzzed with the chatter of hundreds of tourists, their cameras trained on the iconic royal guards in their gleaming red uniforms and towering bearskin hats. Among these stoic figures stood Jonathan Blackwood, a 31-year-old guard whose stillness belied a depth of experience. 2 combat tours in northern Iraq and Somalia, plus years of special forces training. But that day, the calm was shattered by Victor the Viper Clough, the reigning world kickboxing champion, whose loud American accent cut through the respectful murmurs like a foghorn. Dressed in a black and red suit with a gold medallion swinging boldly from his neck, Victor strutted into the scene, oozing confidence and craving attention. "Is this what you call a real warrior?" he bellowed, his voice echoing across the cobblestones as he gestured dismissively at Blackwood and his fellow guards. The tourists gasped, some clutching their phones tighter, sensing a spectacle unfolding. Victor, never one to miss a chance to shine, handed his phone to his trainer, Sergey, with a sharp "record everything," before launching into his self-proclaimed mission to prove his flashy fighting skills outclassed the guard's rigid military discipline. With theatrical flair, he began a series of exaggerated kicks and punches just feet from Blackwood, mocking the guard's motionless stance as defenseless and outdated. To Victor, this wasn't just a stunt, it was a challenge to the very idea of what makes a fighter, a bold declaration that his kickboxing crown trumped the guard's silent duty. Little did he know the crowd and Blackwood were about to witness a lesson far greater than any he intended to teach. Under the morning sun at St. James Palace, 2 men stood in stark contrast, their differences as clear as the red of the Royal Guard's uniforms against the gray cobblestone. Jonathan Blackwood, 31, was no ordinary guard. His eyes carried the weight of real combat, honed by 2 tours in northern Iraq and Somalia, where he'd faced dangers most could only imagine. 7 years with the Queen's Guard Regiment, including grueling special forces training, had forged him into a figure of quiet resilience. Protocol demanded he stand motionless, a living symbol of discipline, his towering bearskin hat steady despite the bustle around him. Then came Victor, the Viper Clough, slicing through the crowd like a peacock in a henhouse. The world kickboxing champion wore his title like his outfit. A loud black and red suit paired with a gleaming gold medallion that screamed for attention as much as his brash American voice. "Look at these guys," he called to his team, smirking at the guard's stillness. To Victor, Blackwood's rigid posture was a joke, a relic of military training he deemed useless compared to his own dynamic skills. He'd built a career on speed and power, knocking out opponents in the ring with moves he claimed no soldier could counter. As he strutted forward, phone in his trainer's hands to capture his bravado, Victor didn't just see a guard. He saw a challenge to his ego, a chance to prove that his flashy, championship-winning style outshone the silent, disciplined world Blackwood represented. It was a clash of swagger versus stoicism, and the courtyard held its breath, waiting to see whose strength would prevail. The courtyard of St. James Palace buzzed with tension as Victor, the Viper Clough, the world kickboxing champion, turned a quiet morning into his personal stage. With the sun glinting off the Royal Guard's red tunics, Jonathan Blackwood stood like a statue, eyes fixed ahead, embodying the discipline of his 7 years with the Queen's Guard and his combat tours in northern Iraq and Somalia. But Victor, clad in a garish black and red suit with a gold medallion swinging like a pendulum, saw only a target for his escalating provocation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced to the crowd of tourists, his voice booming with theatrical flair, "today I'll show you the difference between real fighting arts and military statue posing." What started as a few exaggerated kicks, sharp jabs, and high spins quickly grew bolder. Each move was a taunt, stopping, just inches from Blackwood's face, the guard's stillness fueling Victor's bravado. "See? Fast, deadly, effective," he shouted, claiming military training had no answer for his skills. The tourists shifted uncomfortably, their whispers drowned by Victor's relentless commentary. "This man," he said, pointing at Blackwood, "is trained only to stand still. I'm trained to attack." He wasn't content with mere demonstration. He upped the ante, bragging about a fight the previous month in London, where he'd taken down a British Special Forces veteran in a mere 30 seconds. All that military training was useless, he crowed, his kicks edging closer, the air between him and Blackwood crackling with his audacity. For nearly 10 minutes, Victor's exhibition intensified, each move more provocative, as if daring the guard to break his ironclad protocol. Palace security officers wove through the dense crowd, their progress sluggish amid the sea of onlookers, leaving Blackwood alone to face the onslaught. To Victor, this was more than a show. It was a crusade to prove his ring-honed prowess could humiliate the military tradition he mocked. The crowd held its breath, sensing the line he was crossing, unaware that his next move would tip the scales and reveal a truth he hadn't anticipated. The air in St. James Palace courtyard crackled with anticipation as Victor, the Viper Clough, the world kickboxing champion, prepared to cap his provocative display with a flourish. For nearly 10 minutes, he'd taunted Royal Guard Jonathan Blackwood with exaggerated kicks and boasts, his black and red suit flashing under the morning sun as he mocked the guard's motionless stance. Blackwood, a veteran of northern Iraq and Somalia with special forces training, remained a pillar of discipline, his eyes locked forward despite Victor's antics just inches from his face. The crowd of tourists, now a restless sea of whispers and raised phones, watched as Victor escalated his performance, determined to prove his fighting skills outshone military training. "And now for the finishing move," he shouted, his voice ringing with bravado as he took a spinning kick position. "I knocked out my Thai opponent with this in the last World Championship," he declared, launching into the move that had cemented his title. His body twisted mid-air, a blur of confidence and power. But then, something went wrong. Victor's balance faltered, a slight wobble betraying his control, and the kick veered closer than intended. The wind from his leg sliced through the air, brushing the feathers of Blackwood's towering bearskin hat, causing them to quiver ever so slightly. For a heartbeat, time froze. The crowd held its breath, the palace's ancient stones seeming to lean in. That tiny disturbance was the turning point. Royal Guard protocol, strict as a drill sergeant's orders, allowed intervention when uniform or equipment was affected, and Blackwood's moment had come. What followed was no longer a one-sided show. The guard's response loomed imminent, a shift sparked by Victor's own misstep. The champion had crossed an invisible line, unaware that his dramatic flourish would unravel his bravado. The feather's faint movement, a detail Victor likely dismissed, became the trigger for a lesson in humility, proving that even the smallest ripple could awaken the quiet strength he'd underestimated. The courtyard stood poised, waiting for the guard's next move to rewrite the story Victor thought he controlled. The courtyard of St. James Palace, bathed in morning light, had become a stage for Victor. The Viper Clough's escalating taunts, his kickboxing moves slicing the air just inches from Royal Guard Jonathan Blackwood's face. The champion's final spinning kick, meant to dazzle the crowd and cement his superiority, had gone awry. His balance slipped, and the wind from his leg disturbed the feathers of Blackwood's bearskin hat. That faint quiver was all it took. In an instant, the scene transformed from Victor's one-man show to a masterclass in disciplined response. Blackwood, a 31-year-old veteran of combat zones like northern Iraq and Somalia, and seasoned by special forces training, moved with a speed and precision that stunned the onlookers. One moment, he was a statue, eyes fixed ahead as protocol demanded. The next, his hand shot out, catching Victor's kicking leg mid-air with a fluid, almost ghostly motion. The crowd gasped, the sound rippling through the packed courtyard as Victor stumbled backward, his 6-foot frame teetering on the edge of a fall. But Blackwood wasn't done. His other hand steadied the flailing champion with a grip that was firm yet restrained, using only the minimum force needed to restore order. "Interfering with a royal guard is an offense," he said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of authority, like a seasoned officer addressing a recruit. "Please remain still until security officers arrive." Victor froze, his face a kaleidoscope of emotions. Shock widened his eyes, anger tightened his jaw, and then embarrassment flushed his cheeks. I was just performing," he stammered, his earlier swagger crumbling under the weight of his miscalculation. "It wasn't intentional." The excuse hung in the air, feeble against Blackwood's effortless control. What had been a loud, flashy display of kickboxing prowess was undone by a single economical move, revealing the guard's quiet strength. The tourists' phones captured it all, and Victor's humiliation was as swift as Blackwood's response, a stark reminder that true power doesn't need to shout. The clash at St. James's Palace didn't end when Jonathan Blackwood caught Victor. The Viper cloth's leg mid-kick and steadied him with calm authority. Thanks to Victor's own order to record everything, the moment his bravado met its match was captured on video, and it didn't take long for the footage to explode across the internet. Within hours, the clip of the world kickboxing champion's flashy moves crumbling against a Royal Guard's single, precise intervention went viral, racking up views faster than a wildfire spreads through dry brush. Social media platforms buzzed with reactions, and the public backlash was unrelenting. On Victor's Instagram, where he'd once posted triumphant knockouts, the comments turned savage. "Learned what real discipline is," one user wrote, the words dripping with sarcasm. "Sport fighting versus real military training? 0-1, another quipped, summing up the score with glee. A third chimed in, "Think twice before messing with soldiers," a sentiment that echoed across posts and tweets. Blackwood's stoic professionalism, rooted in combat tours in northern Iraq and Somalia, plus special forces training, earned praise as Wang Yu netizens marveled at how his minimal effort outshone Victor's theatrical spins and kicks. The video laid bare the truth. Victor's loud claims of superiority, including his boast of defeating a British Special Forces vet in 30 seconds, looked hollow against the guard's quiet strength. Tourists who'd witnessed the event live fueled the fire, their shaky phone footage amplifying the narrative of a brash showman humbled by a disciplined soldier. Victor's black and red suit and gold medallion, once symbols of his swagger, became punchlines in memes mocking his ineffective showmanship. The online roasting underscored a broader point. In this context, military training's focus on control and restraint trumped the flair of sport fighting. The Royal Guard stayed silent, needing no statement. Blackwood's actions had spoken louder than any press release, and the public's verdict was clear. Discipline had won, and Victor's ego had taken the knockout blow he never saw coming. The dust settled at St. James Palace courtyard, but the echoes of Victor, the Viper cloth's ill-fated taunts, lingered long after his spinning kick faltered, and Jonathan Blackwood's swift response brought him to heel. What began as a kickboxing champion's loud challenge to a Royal Guard stillness ended with a profound, unspoken lesson that rippled far beyond the cobblestones. Blackwood, a 31-year-old veteran forged by combat in northern Iraq and Somalia and years of special forces training, didn't need to shout or strut. His single, fluid move, catching Victor's leg midair and steadying him with minimal force, was a masterstroke of restraint, executed with a calm, interfering with a Royal Guard is an offense. The Royal Guards issued no official statement, and they didn't have to. Blackwood's actions were a silent sermon, preaching the power of discipline over the noise of bravado. Victor, in his black and red suit and gold medallion, had banked on flashy moves and boasts, like knocking out a Thai opponent or a British Special Forces vet, to dazzle the crowd, but his stumble and subsequent embarrassment revealed the fragility of his showmanship. The viral video that followed, fueled by his own command to record everything, turned his spectacle into a mirror, reflecting a deeper truth. True strength isn't loud or ostentatious. It's the quiet resolve of a guard standing motionless for hours, ready to act with precision when duty calls. This clash of worlds, sport fighting's theatrics versus military tradition's understated might, left viewers pondering what defines a warrior. Was it Victor's championship belt, earned in a controlled ring, or Blackwood's battle-tested poise, honed in chaos? The online masses roasting Victor while lauding Blackwood seemed to agree. Discipline and tradition carried a weight that no amount of flair could match. As the footage spread, it invited reflection on a timeless question. Does real power lie in the shout of the victor or the silence of the steadfast? In that courtyard, the answer was clear, and it didn't need a single word to prove it. The clash between Victor the Viper Clough and Jonathan Blackwood at St. James Palace offers timeless lessons for us seniors who've seen enough years to know what truly matters. Victor's flashy kicks and loud boasts crumbled against Blackwood's quiet discipline, teaching us that real strength isn't in showing off. It's in the steady resolve we build over time. At 50 or beyond, we've learned life isn't about the spotlight. It's about standing firm through storms, like Blackwood did, with a calm that comes from experience. His swift, minimal response reminds us to act with purpose, not excess. Whether it's handling a family spat or facing a challenge, a measured step often speaks louder than a shout. Victor's embarrassment shows that pride can trip us up, but humility, like Blackwood's, lifts us higher. For us, this means cherishing the traditions and wisdom we've earned, those quiet habits of patience and duty that outlast fleeting trends. True power lies in knowing when to move and when to stand still, a lesson we can carry into our days, proving that at any age, it's the depth of our character, not the noise we make, that defines us.